My parents canceled my engagement party without even consulting me because my sister was going through a breakup, deciding we couldn't celebrate until she found a new relationship. I 28F always knew my parents favored my sister 26F, but I never imagined they'd go this far. When my fiancé proposed 6 months ago, I was over the moon. We'd been together for 4 years, and I couldn't wait to start our life together. Little did I know that my own family would try to derail our happiness before we even made it to the altar. It all started 3 weeks ago. I was at work, buried in spreadsheets and trying to meet a tight deadline, when my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Honey, we need to talk about the engagement party. Call me when you can." I felt a flutter of excitement. The engagement party was set for next weekend, and I'd been looking forward to it for months. We'd booked a beautiful venue, sent out invitations, and I'd even bought a new dress for the occasion. I couldn't wait to celebrate with our friends and family. As soon as I got a break, I called my mom back. Her voice on the other end of the line was hesitant, which should have been my first clue that something was wrong. "Sweetheart," she began, "your father and I have been thinking. We think it might be best if we postpone the engagement party for a while." I felt like I'd been doused with cold water. Postpone? But Mom, it's next weekend. Everything's already arranged. Why would we need to postpone? There was a long pause, and then she dropped the bomb. "It's your sister. She and Michael broke up last week. She's devastated, and we just don't think it's right to have a big celebration of love when she's going through such a difficult time." I was stunned into silence. My sister's boyfriend of 8 months had broken up with her, and suddenly my engagement party was being cancelled. It didn't make any sense. "Mom," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice calm, "I'm sorry to hear about breakup, but I don't see why that means we need to cancel my engagement party. Can't we support her without putting my life on hold?" "Oh, honey," my mother sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. "You know how sensitive your sister is. Seeing you so happy would just break her heart. We think it's best if we wait until she's in a better place. Maybe when she's found someone new." I felt like I was in some kind of bizarre alternate reality. "Are you saying we have to put off celebrating my engagement until my sister gets a new boyfriend? Mom, that's insane. What if it takes her months to start dating again? What if she decides to stay single for a while?" "Well," my mother replied, her voice taking on that tone she always used when she thought she was being perfectly reasonable and couldn't understand why anyone would disagree, "then we'll just have to wait, won't we? Family comes first, you know that." I was too shocked to argue further. I mumbled something about having to get back to work and hung up, my mind reeling. As soon as I got home that evening, I told my fiancé what had happened. He was as stunned as I was. "They can't do that," he said, pulling me into a hug as I fought back tears of frustration. "It's our engagement party. They don't get to cancel it without even talking to us first. But apparently they could. And they did." Over the next few days, it became clear that my parents had already started calling guests and canceling arrangements. They'd even contacted the venue to cancel our reservation, all without so much as a word to me or my fiancé. I tried reasoning with them. I called, I texted, I even drove to their house to talk face to face. But they were unmovable. My sister's happiness, it seemed, was more important than mine. Every time I tried to explain how unfair this was, how hurtful, they accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. "Your sister needs us right now," my father said during one particularly heated discussion. "You're getting married, you're happy. Can't you just be content with that and give her some time to heal?" I wanted to scream. Yes, I was happy about getting married, but that didn't mean I didn't deserve to celebrate that happiness with the people I loved. It didn't mean my feelings were less important than my sister's. Speaking of my sister, she was oddly quiet throughout this whole ordeal. When I tried to talk to her about it, she just shrugged and said, "Mom and Dad know best. They're just looking out for me." It was like I was living in some kind of twisted reality, where my engagement was an inconvenience to be managed rather than a joyous occasion to be celebrated. The final straw came when my mother casually mentioned that they had used the money they'd set aside for the engagement party to send my sister on a healing retreat to help her get over her breakup. I was livid. Not only had they cancelled my party without my consent, but they'd reallocated the funds they'd promised for it without even telling me. It felt like a slap in the face, a clear message that my sister's temporary heartbreak was more important than one of the most significant milestones in my life. That night, my fiancé and I had a long, serious talk. We'd been planning on having a big wedding with all the traditional trimmings. Now we weren't so sure. If my family could so easily dismiss our engagement, how could we trust them to respect our wishes for the wedding? Maybe we should just elope, I said, only half joking. To my surprise, my fiancé didn't laugh it off. You know, he said thoughtfully, that's not a bad idea. We could take the money we were going to spend on the wedding and use it for an amazing honeymoon instead. The more we talked about it, the more appealing the idea became. No family drama, no worrying about guest lists or seating arrangements, just us, celebrating our love in exactly the way we wanted to. The next day, I called my parents to tell them our decision. My mother's reaction was predictably dramatic. "You can't elope," she exclaimed. "What about the family? What about tradition? What will people say?" "I don't know, Mom," I replied, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "Maybe you can tell them we're postponing the wedding until my younger sister finds a new boyfriend. That seems to be the new family tradition." My father tried to intervene, his voice gruff with disapproval. "Now listen here, young lady. You're being very selfish. Your sister is going through a difficult time, and as a family, we need to support her. Your wedding can wait." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. "No, Dad, my wedding can't wait. And more importantly, it shouldn't have to. I'm sorry that she is hurting. Truly I am. But her breakup doesn't negate my happiness, or my right to celebrate it. You've made it clear where your priorities lie, and I've made my decision. We're eloping, and that's final." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then my mother spoke, her voice trembling. "If you do this, don't expect us to support you. We won't be a part of it." I felt a pang in my chest at her words, but I stood firm. "That's your choice to make, Mom, just like this is mine." After I hung up, I felt a mix of emotions, sadness, anger, but also a strange sense of liberation. For years, I'd always put my family's wishes ahead of my own, always tried to keep the peace, even when it meant sacrificing my own happiness. But not this time. This time I was choosing myself, choosing my relationship, choosing my future. My fiancé and I spent the next few weeks planning our elopement. We decided on a beautiful beach ceremony in Bali, just the two of us and a local officiant. As we made arrangements, I felt a sense of excitement and joy that had been missing ever since my parents canceled our engagement party. The day before we were set to leave, my sister showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot as she stood in my doorway. "Can I come in?" she asked hesitantly. I stepped aside to let her enter, curious about what had brought her here. We hadn't spoken much since the whole engagement party fiasco. "I heard you're eloping," she said, perching on the edge of my couch. "Mom and Dad are really upset." I shrugged, trying to keep my voice neutral. "I'm sure they are, but it's not their decision to make." My sister was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at me, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm sorry," she blurted out. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't ask Mom and Dad to cancel your party. I swear. I was just so caught up in my own pain that I didn't realize how much it was affecting you." I felt a lump form in my throat. Part of me wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the hurt and resentment. But seeing my little sister so genuinely remorseful, I felt my resolve weakening. "I know you didn't ask for it," I said softly. "But you didn't stop it either. You let them use your breakup as an excuse to dismiss one of the most important moments of my life," she nodded, wiping away her tears. "You're right. I should have said something. I was just... I don't know. I guess I was selfishly enjoying being the center of attention for once. You've always been the golden child, you know? The responsible one, the successful one. For once, everyone was focused on me, and I didn't want it to end." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. All this time, I'd thought I was the one living in her shadow, when she'd felt the same way about me. It was a stark reminder that perception and reality don't always align, especially in families. "I wish you'd talked to me about this sooner," I said. "We could have avoided so much pain and misunderstanding." She nodded, looking ashamed. "I know, I'm really sorry, and I want you to know I'm happy for you, truly. You deserve to celebrate your engagement and your wedding, however you want to." Her words, simple as they were, meant more to me than I could express. For the first time in weeks, I felt the tension in my chest begin to ease. "Thank you," I said, reaching out to squeeze her hand. "That means a lot." We talked for hours after that, really talked, in a way we hadn't since we were kids. We discussed our insecurities, our perceptions of each other, and the ways our parents' behavior had affected both of us. It was painful at times, but also incredibly healing. As she was leaving, my sister turned to me with a small smile. For what it's worth, I think eloping sounds pretty amazing. I hope you and your fiancé have a wonderful time. The next day, as my fiancé and I boarded our flight to Bali, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't expected. Yes, things with my parents were still unresolved. Yes, there would be fallout to deal with when we returned, but I knew now that I had made the right decision for us. Our beach ceremony was everything we could have hoped for, intimate, romantic, and completely drama-free. As we exchanged vows with the sound of waves in the background, I knew that this was exactly how our wedding was meant to be. When we returned home 2 weeks later, tanned and blissfully happy, there was a surprise waiting for us. My sister had organized a small gathering of our closest friends to celebrate our marriage. It wasn't the big engagement party we'd originally planned, but in many ways it was better. It was a celebration of our love, untainted by family drama or outdated expectations. My parents didn't attend. They're still upset about our decision to elope, still insisting that we should have waited and done things the right way. But I'm hopeful that with time, they'll come to understand and accept our choice. As for my sister and me, we're working on building a stronger, more honest relationship. It's not always easy, and we still have our moments of tension and misunderstanding. But we're both committed to breaking the cycle of competition and resentment that has characterized our relationship for so long. Looking back, I realize that what started as a hurtful, frustrating experience ended up being a catalyst for positive change in my life. It forced me to stand up for myself, to prioritize my own happiness, and to reevaluate my relationships. It wasn't the path I expected to take, but I'm grateful for where it's led me. To anyone out there facing similar family drama, I want to say this: your feelings matter. Your happiness matters. Don't let anyone, not even your family, make you feel like your joy is less important than someone else's pain. Sometimes choosing yourself is the bravest, most necessary thing you can do. And who knows? It might just lead you to exactly where you're meant to be.